Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Trident Talks. I'm Chloe, principal here at Trident, and I focus on the go-to-market space. This episode in our new series, Failure Files, I'll be chatting with leaders across cybersecurity about the challenges they've faced and lessons they've learnt along the way. I'm thrilled to kick things off with Jason from Evoke Security. Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Super excited for this one. So, Jason, before we dive in, give us your 60-second elevator pitch. Who are you and what's your story?
So I'm Jason Rebholz, CEO of Evoke Security. I was born and raised in incident response, so I spent way too long responding to incidents, which really formed my viewpoint on security and how you secure those organizations, which led me into a CISO role. And I've always been at the edge of where problems are happening. I was investigating nation state threats before anyone knew that nation states were hacking into US companies. I was investigating and responding to ransomware incidents before it became this multi-million-dollar ransom game that we see today. And now I see the pain that's going to be coming from AI. And so I'm focused on how we get in front of that to try to mitigate some of that future pain.
Nice. Clearly, you've got lots of experience in the industry and you've probably learned a lot along the way. Let's rewind a bit. When you were growing up, what did you actually want to be? Did you actually want to get into cybersecurity? How did you fall into cyber?
So, I mean, like any kid growing up, you go through all the different phases. I was always interested in building things with my hands, obviously starting with Legos, graduating to building little model airplanes out of toothpicks and glue. And ultimately, what I started to realize was that, I could go down this engineering route, but I absolutely hated math. And so as I was looking at different things, I got into just puzzles. So I used to speed solve Rubik's Cubes. And this kind of formed this just love of pattern recognition. And as I was in high school, I started to learn how to program and realized I didn't want to be a computer programmer. And so my high school teacher, he set me on the path that I'm on today. He's like, hey, you should look into computer networking. And I stumbled into the security aspect of it. And it was just like all my worlds and interests collided with the love of puzzles, with the building aspect of things, and just the tech kind of focused mindset that I had. I found security, and just that set me off on my trajectory of my career, all because of that one teacher.
That's awesome. Did you ever think you'd be a co-founder or CEO of your own business when you were growing up?
Not when I was growing up. It's like everyone has kind of this plan of what they're going to do, right? My early days, I was like, I'm going to stay focused, heads down. I'm going to go get a job, and I'm just going to become like an individual contributor. But quickly realized that I loved building companies, and going from Legos to building companies is a big leap. And so I kind of had to just expand my mind on what was possible, because I grew up in a blue collar town, right? Like,
right.
That wasn't the thing that people did, right? And so it took a little bit of time for me to recognize, hey, like, you control your own life. You can really do what you want to do. And so I found myself in smaller companies right out of college. I started at Mandiant, and I was employee 105 there, right? So it's still like, a large company in some sense, not truly a startup, but that kind of put me into this motion where I really liked being close to the problems and being able to leave my mark on it. And every jump that I took, I went smaller and smaller, ultimately co-founding a company before Evoke. And, I said, finally, I was like, let's just do this again and really try to get ahead of the next wave of information security issues.
Nice. So let's talk about that next wave. AI is definitely the latest buzzword in the cybersecurity industry, for sure. Let's talk about Evoke. For anyone who hasn't come across you guys yet, what do you do? Why does it matter?
So our thesis is that AI agents are going to become the next operating system for businesses. Anyone that has played around with agents, and if you haven't, I highly recommend you go play around with Claude Cowork. It will revolutionize the way you do your job. And so when you have that epiphany on what it can do, you don't go back. It just makes things too easy. Now, that ease and convenience comes with a trade-off, because now you're suddenly connecting in all of your different SaaS tools, all of your data, all of access to your local system. And so that comes with a security risk. And so what Evoke is doing is first bringing visibility into what is going on. What agents do you have in your environment, whether it's for locally run agents on your endpoints, whether that's SaaS agents that are you're connecting to and running that have access to your data, or if you're building AI agents into your own products, we provide visibility into that. And so we start from inventory and then go into threat modeling to understand what are the risks, what's the blast radius of what could go wrong. And ultimately, this is about the monitoring for suspicious or malicious activity. So whether an agent is going rogue or somebody compromises a user account and is using an employee's agents against them, we're looking at all of this activity and starting to surface things. So like if somebody's trying to exfiltrate data from the environment, we're going to alert on that. We're going to block on that. And so it's really just going deeper. Everyone likes to say, hey, we need to shift left with software, but this is really about shifting down, because we have to go down another layer to understand what is happening with these agents so that we can effectively block them.
Right. That makes perfect sense. How do you build trust around like the idea of autonomous agents? Sorry.
Yeah, I think that this is the thing that everyone is grappling with. I also think that people are being way too critical on the expectations for what these agents can and should be doing. Right. So, I'm old, so I go back to the days of Wikipedia, right? When I was in high school, you weren't allowed to use Wikipedia. It was like, no, you have to go to the library and use the books, right? It's like, and then it graduated into, okay, well, you can cite one source from Wikipedia, but the rest have to be books. By the time I got to college, Wikipedia was an accepted source, right? And so I think we're going through a similar evolution here where we're starting with fear, which is understandable, and the technology is not perfect, but either are humans, right? And like we see the same exact thing happening with autonomous vehicles, where you have one accident that happens, one fatality with an autonomous vehicle, and everyone's like, oh, we can't do this. Like, this is just too risky. Meanwhile, you have humans driving vehicles and doing stupid things and killing people in them all the time. But that's suddenly that we become accustomed to that. And so that's just normal. So I think it's really just going to take a little bit more time where people can get that trust. And that just happens with using the technology, understanding what it's good at, understanding what it's not. And in parallel, you have these frontier labs that are doing really good work to make it stupid easy for people to be able to use this. You don't need to be an engineer to use AI. And I think there's this fear that happens where it's just like, well, something could go wrong, I don't want to use it. And so they just fall into kind of that fear cycle. But so, yeah, it's really just going to be about start using it, get comfortable of what it's good at, what it's not. And then over time, the engineering will catch up to the mistakes and issues, and everything will evolve. The tech will all evolve. But really fundamentally, what we're looking at here is, there was life before the iPhone and after the iPhone. I think we're looking at something very similar here. There's life before agents and life after in today's age.
Sure, definitely. I used a Waymo for the first time in San Fran last year at RSA, and it was definitely an experience for sure. It felt really safe. Yeah, it was really safe. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, it's just that it's that initial step to actually go and it's a little freaky at first, but yeah, now you're comfortable.
Yeah, no, it was great. And yeah, it was fascinating actually think about the risks of like, oh, are they going to break? Are they going to slow in time? But it was absolutely fine. So I'd definitely do it again. So I think it is that fear, across anything that's autonomous. So no, that makes sense. But you mentioned as well in one of your latest videos for on Evoke and on the AI industry, companies are sort of like throwing spaghetti at a wall just to see how they deploy AI. So I know that it is an evolution. It's going to take time, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we are not going to get it right the first go around. And this is where, are we in a hype cycle? Yes, absolutely. There are so many companies that are getting spun up that are doing the same exact thing. It's not reasonable for every one of those companies to exist. And, are LLMs flawed? Absolutely. It's just, it is fancy text prediction. It's not, this sudden, conscious being that has been created, but it still is really good at what it does. And it's just about understanding what are the right use cases for it and how do we actually get that. And so I always refer back to a McKinsey report where they talk about horizontal and vertical integration. Horizontal integration is basically your copilots. Think Microsoft Copilot. Super easy to deploy against your entire enterprise, but the value of it is really hard to measure and understand, right? I don't think we're going to see the leaps and bounds in productivity because I've got a Copilot that's summarizing an email for me, right? Like that's not really going to do it. Maybe we start to eke out some improvements on document generation and things of that nature. We'll put the AI slop to the side for a second. Humans are lazy. They're definitely going to lean into it and not proofread things. Right. But, it's hard to measure. But what McKinsey found was that companies that did vertical integration, so think of this more of just a specialized, focused application of it. So I like to refer to Harvey, right? So that Harvey AI is for lawyers. I think they got up to 190 million in ARR in like 3 or 4 years. Right, because it's a very specific use case and it's not without its faults, but the productivity leaps there are so much better because it's more focused. You're going to have higher accuracy, not 100%, but you're going to have higher accuracy there. And so for any company, it really is about find those vertical integrations. There's a lot of improvements in the back office that you can do there. And, for myself personally, like every week I'm finding something I'm doing to automate to help me. Right. And so, this past weekend, I put together something. Every week I do a Slack update to our company just to let them know, hey, what are the key wins? What are the areas of improvements that we have to make? And just, keep people up to date on what we're doing. Now, that's something that would take me 30 to 45 minutes on a good week. So I spent 30 minutes over the weekend just connecting CoWork to all the different data sources I need. And I gave it the format that I wanted to spit out. And so now what I can do is just say, hey, give me my weekly summary. I've got that list in the format I like, and now I can go in and edit it into what I want. So now this is going to save me 30 minutes every single week. It's 24 hours a year. It's not a lot, but that was 30 minutes of time to save me 24 hours. I do that once a week, some new task, and now I'm going to be so much more efficient. And this is the exact thing that people have to latch on to is that's the productivity gains that you get.
Efficiency.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I suppose in terms of AI, what early assumptions about AI did you get wrong, maybe? Is there anything looking back that you're like, right, this is what we can use it for. This is the autonomous side, the efficiency. Is there anything that you've learned with it?
Yeah, I wholly underestimated how quickly the tech was going to evolve. I remember early on thinking, all right, we're probably, 3 to 5 years out before we really start seeing the efficiency gains. Within a year, that all changed. And that has been every single aspect of it, because in my prior role as a CISO at a cyber insurance carrier, I was doing heavy research into deepfakes because I saw how attackers could use that for social engineering. And I remember some of the early presentations I was giving, people would ask, hey, like, how soon until this gets good enough where attackers are going to start using it? I was like, well, like attackers can start using this now. It's pretty obvious when it happens. We're probably 2 to 3 years out on when we're going to see mass adoption of this. Within 6 months, you had a new service come out that was just fundamentally changing how threat actors can use this. Because it was literally a SaaS service for deepfakes. And now, with Evoke, within a day of posting something, not even a full job posting, just announcing I was looking for roles, I experienced a deepfake interview. So it's like, this has just gone rampant. And so it really is like just wholly underestimated how quickly this tech was going to evolve and how people were going to be able to latch onto it.
Nice. And so with Evoke, what have you learned there in that maybe it's the solutions, maybe it's what you're creating? Is there anything early on that might be good advice that you can give to delve through to pre-seed companies? Any advice at all, really?
Yeah, for AI security in particular, I always like to say we're early to a problem and late to a solution, because it's a very crowded market. You have tons of startups that are trying to address this, whether it's MCP gateways, whether it's LLM firewalls, whether it's agent monitoring, and all of these things get lumped together in the buyer's mind. And when you have a buyer, and maybe buyer isn't generous, because like there's not a lot of buyers who really understand the what's happening, because the pain is just too low right now. And so, early on, one of the things that we did, we went straight into solutioning. We're like, oh, this is how we're going to solve this whole thing. And we didn't just stop to say, hey, like, is this actually a current pain point for companies? And it was for a very small number of companies that were further along in their journey. But there was this lag that was happening where even security people didn't understand the technology. So early on, we found that engineers actually were more concerned about security than the security people. And so now that's starting to level off. And so it really just comes down to like, listen to what the current pain points are and pay attention to that and follow that lead. Because early on, one of the things that we ended up doing was we go in, we have this great idea and we pitch it to people and they just nod their heads. Yeah, this sounds great. This sounds great. And then that was it. Like there was no follow-up. And the reason for that was we were asking the wrong questions. We were trying to sell what we were doing versus asking, hey, what challenges are you having? What are the pain points that you're running into today? And when we made that switch, and there's a book called The Mom Test. Everyone should read that really in life, because it really reshapes the way that if you're looking for true, honest feedback, you have to ask questions in a specific way. Otherwise, you're just going to get people who are stroking your ego. Because not a lot of people are willing to say, hey, this is not a good idea. Right. And that's what you need to hear early on as a startup. Because if you just keep listening to the things that confirm your idea, you're in a bad spot. And so, I found myself, until I found the mom test, I was like, we're getting too good feedback. And it seems weird. It's just like, we should be celebrating. And I was like, we're not getting anything that's telling us this is a bad idea. And that concerned me. And that's when we found, I was talking to some other founders about this, like, hey, like you need to read the mom test and reshape it. And the second we did that, we started to get better clarity on what are we actually trying to solve for.
Is there any questions that you use now that are thought-provoking when you're speaking to these teams about your product? Is there anything that you're using maybe from the book or just from your experience that helps provoke more of a conversation around, well, actually, this is the route that we're going down, or this is what we need, and get them sort of thinking and giving you like better clarity, better insights, and better data for you to move forward with?
Yeah, it starts with qualifying questions, right? So, I'm asking right off the bat, hey, are you guys using Claude? Using Claude Code or using Claude Cowork? And if the answer is no, we're probably not going to be the right fit for them, right? Because there's not a problem there, right? Now, we also do protect B2B AI applications, right? So if you're building AI into your application, so I'll ask a qualifying question there. Like, hey, are you building anything in there? If the question's no, I need a new friend, right? And I'm there for them, if they want to bounce ideas off me from an AI security perspective, but there is no current pain point for them because they're not even at the point in their journey of using the technology that we're trying to secure. Mm-hmm. And so when we start to find this, typically what we find is that, hey, people are rolling local agents out now. And then it becomes a question of like, how do you know what's actually in the environment? Because visibility today is the thing where everyone's blind. And that's usually the first revelation where it's just like, oh, yeah, I really don't know. And then it's just, well, is that a problem for you? Like, how concerned are you about that? Some people don't care at this point, right? And again, that's not the customer for us, and that's okay, right? Because I know you don't start a company without conviction. Like, I know this is going to be a pain point for every single company moving forward, and potentially even individuals. And so, like, we have to have the security solution for them ready to go. But we're still early in the AI adoption phase where, like, it's still people who are early adopters trying to get rid of the pain versus waiting for, basically to get punched in the face. And that's just that is the ever existent threat that happens where you have to have a certain level of pain that you're dealing with in order to actually go and put a solution in place. And that's what you're trying to suss out when you're asking these qualifying questions when you're talking to customers.
Nice. And it sounds like you're growing pretty quickly. You've moved through these stages that you need to hit for your growth and everything. What does Evoke look like for 2026? What's your guys' plans this year?
So it's really to continue to listen to our early customers and understand what those pain points are and go along the journey with them as they're adopting AI in their organization. We found a particular pain point of people who are starting to roll Claude out and other local agents. They don't have the visibility. They're concerned about data exfiltration. Evoke can solve that, right? And so we're going to start there. We know the problem is much, much wider. But it's really about, finding those early customers that see the vision that we see what is coming our way and want to take steps now. And so really it's about that growth journey for Evoke and our customers as we all try to figure out how you secure AI together, because it's still a very early field.
Right. 100%. That's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Jason, for your insights. It's great to hear more about Evoke and your incredible journey with them so far. Before we finish, for everyone watching, what's one security action that they should take this week?
So I'm actually going to give a productivity action. If you have not tried Cowork, go try it, pay for the plan, and start to automate certain tasks that you have. I'm telling you, you will never go back. And then when you have that set up, start to think about how you get the right visibility and control in there to secure it. And that's when you can talk to Evoke.
Nice. And just quickly, cycling or running?
Cycling, hands down. I hate running.
Mac or Windows?
I former Windows guy, fully converted to Mac, but not.
No way.
I'm an Android guy at heart forever.
And cold plunge or sauna?
You have to cycle between the two.
Nice. I like it. Well, thanks again for joining us, Jason. That's a wrap on this episode of the Failure Files with Evoke Security. Stay tuned for more from Trident Talks.